So, there was this video floating around the internet the other day of these dogs. There's this dog on one side of a fence and some other dogs on the other side of the fence, and they can't get to each other, and so they're barking like they want to kill each other. They just want to get to the other side of the fence and tear the other dogs to pieces, right? But then the fence starts to open, and the dogs keep barking until the fence is all the way open. And when we expect those dogs to follow up on all that posturing, they don't. Instead, they back off. They shut up real quick. They get really quiet, and they just leave each other alone. And it's funny. It's really funny. But you know what? People are exactly like that. And if you don't believe me, look at the comments of a YouTube video, a popular YouTube video with any kind of controversy behind it, any sort of contrarian opinion being voiced, and you'll hear people, well, they're barking at each other. A lot of internet tough guys, keyboard warriors, barking at each other. It's posturing. Nothing but posturing. And it is so easy behind that fence, that virtual fence of the internet, the screen, to be just like those dogs and to puff ourselves up and shout, "I'm bigger and better and stronger and smarter than you, and here's why." And meanwhile, the other person's doing the same thing. And that's it's funny, but it's a potentially really dangerous and destructive behavior. So I'm going to tell you two stories. One story about the internet. When YouTube was still pretty new, and YouTube comments, angry YouTube comments were still pretty new, keyboard warriors, that was still a pretty new thing, I fell into that trap myself for a while. And I found myself watching other videos and thinking, I'm better than that guy. Leaving some angry comments like, "You're not as good as me." Of course, we try to sound much more articulate than that. I certainly did, but in the end, that's all we're really saying is, "I'm better than you. I think I'm better than you." Man, don't let yourself fall into that trap. So there's a popular YouTuber, dude who goes by the name of Quan Kicker. I think Quan Kicker makes taekwondo videos, fight choreography, stuff like that. Has a very popular channel now. But back then he was just starting out, and I saw some of his videos, and I remember thinking like, this little dude thinks he's hot stuff. My taekwondo is better than that. And I wrote this stupid angry comment. In one of his videos, and thank goodness I've got a conscience, but because it kept eating at me. Just kept eating at me. And I think it was about a year later, almost a year later, it was still eating at me. And I thought, you know what? I got to make this right. And I contacted the guy, I sent him an email. I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I was a jerk. I left you some angry comments, and it was unreasonable, and I'm sorry." And it turns out this guy, I don't know him personally, but he wrote back and super gracious, very nice guy. And that kind of blew me away. Like, wow, I was an absolute jerk to this guy, and all he had to say was positive things. That's a case of that virtual posturing that's so easy to fall into when we have this case of anonymity. And it's not just a case of the internet, because this can leak over into real life. I'm going to tell you another story. When I was a pretty new MMA fighter, still really green, not that experienced, I got onto this internet forum discussing fighting and MMA fights, local MMA, and somehow I ended up in this argument with this other fighter, a guy named Casey Beckstead. He's a pretty good fighter. Back then he was a pretty good fighter. Won a bunch of fights. Trained with Jeremy Horn, great coach. And I got into this argument with him. I don't remember how it started, but I do remember I kept it going. I kept throwing fuel on the fire. And it escalated. And I kept making it escalate more. And the angrier I got, it felt like, I don't know, when we get angry, we mistake ourselves for the Incredible Hulk. We think, if I get more angry, I'm going to get stronger and bigger and until I'm invincible. No. You are not the Incredible Hulk. You're not the Incredible Hulk, guys. But when you're angry, it totally feels like you are. So I got angry at this guy, and I challenged him to a fight over the internet. Which, you know, when you're angry on the internet makes all the sense in the world, but come fight time, no, not so much. So, a good friend of mine who's a coach, still is to this day, Mark Brewer, he pulled me aside and said, hey man, this guy, he's a good fighter, okay? Here, come train with me, because, you know, I was training myself at the time, which is, man, guys, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need direction in your fighting career, you do. Nobody makes it in this sport by themselves. I mean, it's a solo sport. It's not a team sport, but it is. I mean, you need that team behind you. You really do. So, you know, I went with my friend to his jiu-jitsu school, and we trained really hard, trained jiu-jitsu, and very first day there was humbling though. He said, all right, I want you to show me what you would do in this situation. And he just shot him for a double leg takedown, boom, put me down on the ground in the guard, and he said, what's your plan now? And I realized, wow, I really didn't think this through. I do not have a guard game. I don't know how to get up from here. I don't know how to sweep from here. I don't know how to submit him from here. He's got superior leverage to strike from here. I painted myself into a corner, haven't I? Gotta love that chime on the clock over there. Anyway, we trained really hard, and you know, put in a lot of hours in grappling and jiu-jitsu and sparring and all that stuff, and the more I did that, the less angry I got, and I realized, man, anger sustains you 30 seconds. Anger sustains you for 30 seconds, and that 30 seconds doesn't, that does not count, you know, getting in the cage. I mean, anger will get you into the cage, it won't get you out. Man. Because again, as soon as that referee looks at you and says, are you ready? If all you have is anger behind you, you don't have training, you don't have technique, you don't have experience, forget about it. Forget about it. So, funny story though, when the fight time finally came, you know, Casey, he had something come up for work. I mean, he honestly did. He wasn't chickening out. I mean, he had no reason to chicken out against me at that time. Absolutely not. But he had something come up for work, and he could not make the fight. But another fighter, a guy named Mike Bullock, he stepped up and said, hey, I'll do it. I'll fill in. Because again, the fight was scheduled to happen. I'd signed the contract. I was like, well, this is not what I expected. I expected this grudge match from some dude I was angry with on the internet, and I'm getting in a fight with someone else. Okay. Mike had some wrestling experience, and you know, he had some mean punches and some pretty good kicks, and well, I got in there, and I got my butt kicked by a guy I wasn't even mad at. I didn't even know him. Never met him before. You know, we went in there, scrapped a little bit, you know, got beat up a little bit, ended up on the bottom, dropped a few elbows, boom. Fight ended kind of weird, but, you know, it made me painfully aware. If that was a fight with Casey, you know, man, it probably would have been worse. Probably would have been worse, because again, Casey was a more experienced fighter. And, man, I was eating crow. I was eating some serious crow. So, a few months later, I had another fight, and I went to the fight venue, and there were a bunch of guys from Jeremy Horn's Elite Performance Gym there, including Casey Beckstead. And I saw him, I was like, oh man, oh man, oh man, I can't talk to him, I can't let him see me, oh man, this is going to be so embarrassing. He's going to be like, oh man, you wanted to fight me and you couldn't even beat this other guy, what were you thinking? But he didn't say that. To his credit, I mean. It turns out this guy was so mad at on the internet, this guy I had villainized, this guy I had demonized in the virtual world turned out to be a pretty decent human being. Nice guy. I mean, he walked up to me. I was like, oh man, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? Stretched out his hand, shook my hand. I was like, what is this? What's going on here? And he pulled me aside and he said, hey, water under the bridge. Frankly forgave me, put it all behind us. And he said, hey, let me give you some tips for this fight. I know this guy you're going to fight. Okay? And, you know, started working some technique with me in the corner, and I was like, wow, this guy who, you know, I had slung so much mud at him. Nobody, not even myself, I wouldn't have blamed him. I would not have blamed him at all if he had treated me like dirt at that point. But he didn't. He took the high road. He taught me a very important lesson that day. Take the high road, guys.